now at the universe.
Hello, what is up? Thanks for watching. My name is Joe. Today we're talking about Tesla. So why do I care so much about Tesla? Well, firstly, my background's in electrical engineering. I studied my advanced degree in that. I've been investing in Tesla for years. I own dozens of Tesla shares, and so I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And so that has required me to take my background in venture capital and working in tech startups, and now, more recently, this is relevant for the video, working at Atlassian for the last few years. I've been taking a lot of that experience and the capital that I've been building and investing it into these disruptive companies. So if you would be interested to watch me break down the strategies of these companies and understand why I'm interested, why I'm bullish on them, and why I'm investing so heavily, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and chuck a like for the YouTube algorithm. But no more fuffing around, let us jump right into it. So this story begins with the CEO of the company that I work at, Mike Cannon-Brookes, an Australian tech icon, betting with Elon Musk on Twitter that he could not fix the South Australia energy crisis. So South Australia was heavily reliant on natural gas, and it was coming in being shipped on railway. And what had happened was trees were coming down and other issues with the railway, but it was blocking the shipment of the natural gas. And so what happened was the energy prices started to rise exponentially because they didn't have enough emergency power plants to switch on to get the energy that the grid required at peak usage. So as we go through this video, I'm going to break down a number of sort of more technical electrical concepts of how the electricity grid works and how Tesla is going to disrupt each of them, because this is a sleeping giant strategy that no one is thinking about. Well, not enough people are thinking about. So Mike Cannon-Brookes tweets at Elon, "Hey, I bet you can't do this." Elon tweets back, "Well, yeah, I can. Get your government to agree and we'll do it." So they started a bidding war essentially for different tech companies to present solutions for this crisis. So Elon put through a bid for that, and they won. And so the bet was Elon Musk would be able to, and Tesla would be able to, install a battery large enough to offset the requirement of the grid within 100 days, or it would be free. Okay, now that is a very quick turnaround on something as large as this. So at the time, it was the world's largest battery. All right, so we're not talking about the AAA batteries in your remote control. We're talking about a 100 megawatt hour battery. Okay, so that's really quite something. So what we have here, that's the energy that it would be able to contain. So that's the bet. So what happened was Tesla worked with a French contracting company called Neoen. I hope I'm saying that right, but Neoen. And this is relevant as well. We'll come back to them over and over again through this video. They're a central player. But they install the batteries. Tesla makes the batteries, and as we know, Tesla has the lowest per kilowatt hour cost of the battery. And the kilowatt hour is just how much energy would be produced if you outputted a kilowatt for 1 hour. Okay, so that's 1 kilowatt hour. So it's energy and not power. So people get those confused all the time. But so we're talking about here, the capacity of the battery was going to be 100 megawatt hours, and Neoen themselves were then partnering with them to install this battery. So they installed this, I think a couple of years ago, and it cost them $90 million. All right, this number was hidden away in Neoen's archives because they were a private company up until recently. When they went public, they had to disclose it. So it was $90 million to do this. Now, in the time after that, it has been returning $47 million a year in revenue. And that has been so successful that they've actually just contracted Neoen and Tesla to expand that battery to 193 megawatt hours, up from 100. And in that time, another large battery has been installed, so it's no longer the world's largest, but we're really pushing the boundaries here. It was a proof of concept. It proved that these type of large-scale commercial batteries could be produced and used at a large scale. Now, this was a real 0 to 1 moment for Tesla, and I'm going to talk about 0 to 1 moments constantly because it's that kind of disruption that opens up these new markets, these things where typically entrepreneurs stay far away from, things like the car market, which has not had a successful startup in 100 years. Think about that. What other industries, we've only been around for a few decades in terms of our lifespan, you and I probably. So I don't know, maybe some 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds watch this, but in the last 100 years, they won't have seen new car companies come out except for Tesla and succeed. Right, these other car companies, they're either stayed incredibly niche or they've just completely failed, like the DeLorean and these other kind of, Koenigsegg works, but it's on a very niche, very expensive brand. There are only a few players in this space, and they've been around for over 100 years. So Tesla has come through and done this 0 to 1 disruptive moment, installing the world's largest battery. They're now expanding that. It's paid for itself in 2 years. Neoen, right, so remember I was talking about that was 100 megawatt hours. Neoen has gigawatt hours, so it goes, mega, giga. They have gigawatt hours, so thousands of megawatt hours of projects lined up in the pipeline. because once this thing was proven it could be done, no one believed it could be done. No one thought that you could build a battery for that cost efficiency, that kilowatt hour, dollar per kilowatt hour amount. But Tesla has done it because they have the world's best battery density technology. And that's been their advantage with the car companies. And so now when it comes over to the energy side, they're the same. They're able to produce this at a much lower cost. And so if Neoen continues to do these contracts, they're going to be using Tesla because that creates the best margins for them. Now, interesting tidbit here, Neoen kept 30% of the energy production capacity of the battery privately to themselves. So the Australian government got 70%, Neoen kept 30%. So that means that of the electricity produced, they get to sell 30% of it. So essentially, 30% of the money generated goes to them. That's huge, okay? That's a really big amount of money. I'm talking about like taking part of the electricity grid and privatizing that back to this company. So, all right, that's enough about the South Australia battery. It's taken them less than 2 years and they're now expanding it. It took them 100 days to install it, and this is something we call the concept of digital inertia. Now, inertia is an electrical engineering concept, and it's one of the main value adds of a traditional power plant. So because of the fact that you have a real turbine spinning, once you get it going, it continues to spin. And so it's good for grid stability, right? It's that inertia is that it will slowly decelerate. Whereas with the battery, when you stop outputting, it just stops instantly. So what they've managed to do is digitize this analog process and create an emulation of that inertia. So we're calling it digital inertia. You don't need to understand the details of it, but just know that this has been one of the things that has been keeping traditional power plants in action for the last few years as solar and wind have become more and more cost effective. So we've got generation, but then we also have this concept that most people aren't appreciating, which is grid stability. So the generation is now being replaced by wind and solar. It's cheaper per kilowatt to generate for renewables than it is to run existing power plants. For the first time in history, that ticked over last year. So we have this inflection point where we're going to see this large push into renewables because it's literally cheaper, right? And this is what I look at, and it's like the free market will decide. Right, the free market will go with the thing that is most cost effective, and it's renewables. So we're not talking about ethics here. We're not talking about doing the right thing. We're talking about the most cost effective strategy. And so Tesla's been pushing that. So we've now finally done that one step that's been required to remove all the value of a power plant. So how does this get even better, right? So if we're thinking about governments trying to replace power plants with large-scale batteries and renewable generation. So that's a tens of billions of dollars industry right this second, and growing very rapidly towards $1 trillion industry over the next 10 years, okay? So South Australia, which had this energy problem, had it solved by this battery, and it wasn't able to do enough, so they've expanded it. But what they've also been doing is Tesla has been selling these smaller power packs, which you've probably seen, called the Powerwall. Now this is a 3 or 4 kind of kilowatt hour system that allows you to store enough electricity for your house. So that as the photovoltaic, as the solar electricity is generated, it is generated in a curve like this. If you think about it, the middle of the day is the hottest time of day. Speaking of, it's 28 degrees right now in Sydney and going upwards towards mid-30s, and it's the middle of the day, but I'm in here making these videos, so please smash that like button. So we've got that curve, so we need to store it in this battery. Now, there's an additional benefit to this. So if you're the homeowner, okay, you buy this Powerwall and it goes with your rooftop solar. The energy that's generated, you could sell back to the grid at 12 p.m. when you're at work, and you would maybe make 3 or 4 cents per kilowatt hour that you sell back. But then when you come home at 5 or 6 p.m., when everyone does after work, you turn on your air conditioning, you turn on your oven, and your electricity usage spikes. Okay, so you have the solar generation looking like this, and you have the energy usage looking like the morning, nothing during the day, and stuff in the evening, right? Because most people are working. So when you have a battery, you can store it in the middle of the day and use it in the evening, so you're essentially arbitraging your electricity. So that's on an individual sense. But what about when you take all of these homes together and you turn them into a large network of these power walls? So we talked a little bit about inertia, but there's another principle here, which is frequency stabilization. Now, frequency is important for the electricity grid, right? Because the electricity, it goes in waves like this, and frequency is how many times in 1 second does it oscillate like this, okay? So if it oscillates way too fast, it's dangerous. If it oscillates way too slow, it's dangerous. So when you want to keep the voltage in a safe range so that it doesn't blow up your electrical devices, you need to keep the voltage in a safe range, which means that you need to keep the frequency in a safe range. This is just how it works. Frequency regulation is a function of voltage regulation is a function of frequency. So to not get too deep, okay, we know that we need to keep the frequency safe. And if we need to do that, which means we need to regulate the reactive power. And so now we're getting to the heart of it here. So battery packs have this advantage where while they're pumping out electricity, they can pump it out at a defined frequency. Okay, so they can offset. If the frequency is too low in the grid, they can output higher frequency. If it's too high, they can output lower frequency, and it helps to balance things out. Now, you can't just do it with one small battery. You need a lot of these batteries all working together. Now, what kind of company do we know that is able to connect a lot of things together and have very sophisticated software, do over-the-air updates, and connect a lot of very complex devices such as cars together? So we have Tesla rolling out these Powerwalls, able to connect them all together using the internet, and then become this distributed energy utility like the people that you pay for your electricity, that not only can replace the power plants with their batteries, but also take care of the grid stability, which offsets the need to even use these batteries. Because the reason that you need to use that emergency power plant, and when you turn on this emergency power plant, the reason why we need to use it is because when everyone comes home at that 5 or 6 p.m., the grid is actually not able to provide enough electricity. So what happens is everyone turns on their air conditioning, electricity use spikes like crazy, and they have to turn on these emergency power plants to stabilize the grid. Those are very expensive. Those cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars every time to the government. And so they're very, very expensive utility. And so if they're able to be replaced with this, it's going to even more make the grid more efficient, and that money will instead, some margin of it, will be going back to Tesla. So you're talking about them becoming a grid utility to replace emergency power plants, to replace traditional power plants, to handle grid stability and improve our access to electricity so that we have less outages. You have PG&E in the US and California having controlled outages all the time on purpose. You have cascading failure due to voltage deregulation, which happens across Australia when you have a power outage in your house, when your fuses flip, when your computer surges and breaks it. That's all because of this issue. Now, Tesla is positioned here to just convince homeowners to buy these solar setups because it's cheaper than the grid, and then at the same time improve our quality of electricity. So, right. That's a lot of detail. So what we're saying is we have this vertical integration of the entire electrical utility network that Tesla's going to be able to take over. Right now they're using your normal Wi-Fi or cellular data, paying AT&T or Verizon or whoever your local provider is, but with the Starlink initiative, Starlink from SpaceX, they're launching thousands of satellites to be able to create a global mesh for a broadband network that will be very cheap and very low latency. So they'll be able to vertically integrate that and avoid that cost that they currently have to pay, and just absorb that margin themselves as well. So we're talking about them becoming the Airbnb of electricity. Right? They're not going to own power plants. They're not going to own batteries. The government will front it all. They can just keep a percentage like Neoen is doing now, make money from the generation of electricity for a commercial sense, have people buying the residential batteries, have them working together to flood electricity in and out of the grid at the right levels at the right times, and helping homeowners make money off of their solar setup by helping them by pumping out the electricity from the batteries and getting paid for it. All right, so this is one of the most strategic plays to disrupt an incumbent I've ever seen. But Elon Musk disrupted banks with PayPal, disrupted newspaper with Zip2, disrupted space flight and NASA with SpaceX, disrupted public transportation and normal transportation with Tesla and the Boring Company. All right, I think I've made my point. He can pull this off, and then you have Tesla absorbing most of the revenue of your government's electricity grid while providing a better quality of service for a lower cost. Okay, you can see why I'm getting really excited about this. So let me finish off with a hot take. All right, so thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you have, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more hot takes. But this hot take for this video is, I did some research into Neoen. Okay, they have gigawatt hours of these deals, so 10 to 20x their current deal flow that we've seen with Tesla. So that's a 10 to 20x energy revenue for Tesla. But Tesla has 5 billion in the bank, or 5.4 billion in the bank. Neoen is a French publicly traded company, so you could buy shares in them if you really want, if you're able to get that. But should Tesla buy them? They only have a market cap of $2.5 billion. So hot take, Tesla should buy Neoen. I think they should, because they'll be able to then vertically integrate all of the service fee, which is going to be more profit margin, right? They're building the battery, and then they can just profit for installing it, and then they can take 20 to 40% of the revenue generated by that battery forever. And so as they roll out these batteries all over Europe, they're going to have the Berlin Gigafactory in 2021, 2022. And then you've got Australia, where we have very, very large capacity for solar production. You've got the US market, where Solar City is one of the largest solar installers. So you have this vertical integration that's absolutely absurd. The only reason why maybe they won't is, in my opinion, that they're keeping that money in the bank for their novel battery tech ramp up. That if they're going to produce what they have said is terawatt hour, which they're going to need to if they're going to do these gigawatt hours of deals with Neoen, right? They can't be producing their current 35 gigawatt hours. They need to be at the terawatt hour level. If they pull that off, then that in itself is $1 trillion business right there, okay? So in 2020, maybe they're keeping this as a rainy day fund because of an impending global recession for 2020. Maybe the money in the bank is for battery production up ramp, or maybe, hot take, they're gonna buy Neoen next year to vertically integrate the services side of the battery business. Okay, so this is a world revolution. Tesla often vertically integrates, they get the service in, they take a perpetuity stake, and they make billions in incremental profit. So this is going to drive a Tesla stock price to $1,000. This is not financial advice, it's just my opinion. But I'm going to talk about the Starlink initiative. I'm going to talk about the battery ramp up and the new battery tech and whether I think a recession is coming in 2020. Thanks for coming on with my ramblings. If you're really enjoying this, you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.